there, Squirrel Army! How's it going? For today, I want to talk about Ojer Taq's deepest foundation and how good I think it is, how broken I think it can be.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alright, so 6 mana, 6/6 vigilance. This set comes with a bunch of gods that are 6 mana and do a whole bunch of things. This one, if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many tokens are created instead. So I misread this when I first read it, I guess, because I thought it's just any token. Because I thought, oh, with treasures is just super broken. But it's just creature tokens, but still that's really quite good. And as a lot of the gods tend to sort of do, if it dies, you can return to the battlefield under your control, but it returns as a land, produces white mana, and then you can pay 3 mana to transform it back into its other side, but only if you attack with 3 or more creatures this turn, and only as a sorcery. So that's okay, I guess, as well. But obviously you much prefer to have the front side of this card. Tripling up your tokens, just your creature tokens, in any white deck is kind of what white kind of really wants to do. I have a couple of decks that, want to make tokens and that sort of thing. So I am very heavily thinking about it in those decks because those are mostly decks to create creature tokens. And you could say that it's perhaps an upgraded Anointed Procession in some ways, or it's a upgraded Bondak in some ways. But it's also a little bit worse because it's not all tokens. It is a 6/6 vigilance. Like, I don't care that it's a 6/6 vigilance. It could be a 4/6 vigilance, or whatever. That would be fine with me too. Or even a 4/7 or 4/8 vigilance. That would be even better, I think, in my opinion, because I don't care about, like, this thing having so much power or whatever, because the main effect that I want it for is the creating triple tokens effect, and yeah, its power really doesn't matter that much. It's nice that it has 6 power, and nice that it has vigilance, because you can crack in with it and, leave it on defenses, which is why, again, I always say anything that sort of has vigilance really needs more defenses than what it needs offenses. But I just find that defense is just so much better anyway. Most of the time, you just want as much defense as you can. You don't really need that much offense, in my opinion. That's just me. Like, offense you can get easily anyway, so like, it doesn't really matter that much, I don't think, anyway. But that's just the way that I look at it anyway. But still, this is a really powerful card, and there's really powerful things that you can do with it. Obviously, it is a legend, so it can helm its own deck. But I doubt that many people are going to make, that many commander decks with it. Maybe people will make some decks with it, but still, it's just one of those things that, there's so many really good Azorius and, Selesnya and other commanders that this could go into. I was actually thinking about it in my enchantments deck, which essentially clones enchantments, but it only makes makes more tokens of creatures. So yeah, misreading it there and saying, oh, well, it only does creatures, so it doesn't really work that well. Like, it would work for the enchantment creatures, but still, not that amazing still. Not terrible, but yeah, not something that I would really want to replace in those decks that much. But as for my token decks that I do have, I would think that this is pretty much an auto-include, and it's hard to say that, because I'm thinking, well, is Anointed Procession that much better or whatever? And I'm trying to go, well, what can I cut for it, or what can I put this in the slot of? And I don't have any Anointed Procession, so I'm kind of going, well, maybe I could, slip this in instead of an Anointed Procession, because, again, mainly those decks want to make creature tokens anyway, so I'm just kind of like, well, then you're paying 2 more mana for a 6/6 vigilance body that also doesn't really die and turns into a land. That's pretty darn good. So I'm just thinking of all the applications for my own decks, really. But, like, this applies to anyone who has a deck. You've got to try to find space for this thing. If you're doing anything with creature tokens and you're in white, you know, like, so even if you're, like, Bant or something, like, again, it's pretty darn good, just to get this 6/6 vigilance creature, like, tripling your tokens, again, is much better than doubling your tokens, so, and that's probably also worth another 2 mana on top of Anointed Procession, so, there's a lot of upsides here. Again, there is a few downsides in saying, well, if you're doing stuff with treasures or clues or any of that other sort of stuff, I know the new map tokens are a thing for the new standard and whatever, so again, it wouldn't work with those, but still, there are a lot of things that are in these colors that are already doing this kind of thing that those decks would really want this, even over perhaps Anointed Procession, because instead of doubling, you get triple, so instead of 1, you get 3, and instead of 1 and you getting 2, so, like, it's 1 more in that case, but when you get, like, 10, instead of getting 20, you get 30, so that's a huge, like, multiplier, when you have those effects come together or whatever, even if you're creating one at a time, which my Tauren's deck kind of does, but still, it's kind of like, well, that doesn't matter that much because, again, tripling up that one generation of tokens is still pretty good because, again, getting 3 of them suddenly out of nowhere and, flooding the board, which is what that deck really wants to do, and just having the powerful 6/6, sitting there doing stuff for you. And again, like, yes, you can Swords to Plowshares it, or whatever, or Path to Exile it to get rid of it, but still, like, there's a lot of destroys of removal, and there's a lot of, like, Blasphemous Acts and, board wipes that this will get caught in sometimes, so, and just, again, being able to bring it back is just super strong, so, like, I always like gods because they always seem to have a lot more going for them. They either have indestructible or have ways to bring them back pretty well. So I like these gods and their designs. I want to talk about more of the gods. They haven't revealed them all. I think we'll be talking about the red one probably soon. But I wanted to talk about this one. I don't really have much to say too specifically about some of those other deck commanders or whatever those gods. But still, like, we'll have something to say about them because, they're just super powerful and don't really die, and that's pretty strong. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this one. I can't wait to try it in some decks. Again, maybe I will get rid of Anointed Procession because it's not really that amazing, and I'd rather have a creature that does effectively more for 2 more mana, because at least then it's a walking, talking, blocking, attacking thing as well. But you guys can let me know what your thoughts are on this one. Write them down there in the comments below, and hope you will join me again for another one.